Hey there, this is Anywhere and Anything Else. Thank you so much for stopping by. This is going to be a first in a series, I think. I don't know if I want to call this podcast, at least not as of yet. Still a bit too early. These are probably going to be a lot shorter than what anyone could deem a podcast. But I'm calling this Just What's on My Mind because it's exactly what it is. Just taking a few minutes out of my day here to discuss things that have been sort of eating away at my mind. I just feel like if I said out loud, maybe would put them to rest. Not that they're bothering me or anything. Um, yeah, so this is going to be a first in a series. And today we're going to be talking about Girls Aloud. All right, so who are these girls to begin with? Let's see. What have we got here? 5 studio albums, 2 live albums, 23 singles, 22 of which I believe made the top 10 in the UK. Um, 24 music videos. Why are there 24 of them? I don't know. Several tours. I want to say about 5, maybe 6 tours. I don't know. The point is, they are pop royalty and they're awesome. Now, here's me, an American, singing the praises of this British girl band. What do I know about them? For me, Girls Aloud, I would have first come across. It's hard to pinpoint. But I want to say it's somewhere between 2010 and 2012. Could not have been 2012. That would have been way too early or way too late. Maybe it was 2009, 2010. Let's put it somewhere between 2010 and 2011. At the time, I considered myself lucky enough to have discovered them well over midway into what would have been their hiatus, or what should have been their hiatus. I guess what was their hiatus. But I believe, from what I'd heard, it was meant to be somewhere around a year. That ended up not happening. But yeah, it was definitely pretty late in the game. This was post Out of Control era. They'd done a lot of great things and had a lot of achievements under their belt at that point. And I, of course, was just waiting to be a part of it in terms of things happening in real time. How did I first come across them? I think I was trying to cheer myself up one day, just going down a rabbit hole on YouTube. I think I was watching just like clip after clip of like ridiculous American Idol auditions. Man, that used to be a thing. I can't imagine sitting down to watch American Idol now. Anyways, at some point I exhausted anything remotely interesting, and instead of moving on to do something productive with myself, I then switched over to X Factor clips because they had been coming up in the feed alongside the American Idol ones, and I'd been sort of ignoring them because I didn't really know what it was, or wasn't familiar with the people. I didn't see the point in watching clips like that from another country. But I exhausted all the American Idol ones, and I guess my brain was craving a little bit more of that dopamine hit. So I watched a few of those, and at some point, I don't know how far I got into it, but I remember that's probably the first time I'd come across Danny Minogue. Yeah. And who else was on the panel at that time? I think Louis. I don't think I knew who Louis was at that time either. But at some point, I came across a clip with Cheryl in it, obviously. And I didn't really. Yeah, I don't think I took much notice of her. I don't think I could understand her. But I don't think that mattered much because I was just watching clips to sort of cheer me up a little bit. It wasn't really about the judges. It was more about the strange, awkward contestants that were never going to make it. Let's see. So what really caught my attention was there was this group of girls that came in, and all I remember was their audition being like terrible. And I have no idea what they were doing or singing. I thought they sounded bad. I thought the song was I didn't even know what to make of the song because I just didn't think it was a good performance. But whatever it is they were singing clearly had something to do with this other new judge on the panel that was not Danny Minogue, who I had just learned about also for the first time, probably that same evening, going down this rabbit hole of clips. All I understood was that the song they were singing had something to do with this other judge, and she was very nice and sweet to them about their audition, even though they clearly, I don't know if I would say they needed to do more work, or if they should have just given up, or they should have just let it go. I don't know. But she was very nice, so I was like, okay, so clearly this has something to do with her from Simon's comments. I kind of surmised that she was in a band, but I thought the audition was so terrible that I needed to know what the song was. Like, was it just, as far as I knew, it was a bad song. Um, so I just needed to know, and I managed to, after suffering through the clip a few more times, I managed to glean enough words to figure out that it was something kind of ooh. Which, it's been many years now, and as much as I love Girls Aloud and will sing their praises to anyone who will listen, I have to say, something kind of ooh is not the song to introduce. Something kind of ooh is not the song with which to introduce anyone to Girls Aloud, and I stand by that. It's a very strange song, among other reasons we'll get into. Yeah, so I went and I looked that up, and I didn't get it. I watched maybe like 30 seconds of the video, and it was like, okay. Totally didn't get it. Didn't make me any more interested in this other judge on the panel. But I kept watching those X Factor clips. And I guess, I don't know, as much as you can warm to a stranger in 3-minute clips at a time in one evening, I guess I did with Cheryl, and I eventually, what happened with that? I must have started getting more like recommendations of other Girls Aloud things, because I think following that, I saw a lot of like, not even music or performances, but like maybe like interviews and like shows they were on and stuff like that. I think I was quite taken with them, with Girls Aloud, straight away, mostly because I couldn't understand a thing that any of them were saying. I think a lot of that early time, a lot of the videos I watched were like me trying to decipher some kind of code. I was like a biological enigma machine, I think. Yeah, I think that was most of the fun of watching those interviews early on for me, was just trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Um, Also the fact that they had won a talent competition, much like X Factor. I think aside from American Idol, I didn't really have much frame of reference on anything, on sort of talent competitions and the history of them. I just thought it felt like American Idol was just this random genius idea that sprang out of nowhere. And so anytime I saw something remotely related from 10 years prior, 20 years prior, I found it just interesting to dig into. So I think there was something over here in the States called Star Search. I don't know too much about that, but it was just interesting to come across. And I think with Girls Aloud being on Pop Stars, the Rivals, um, it just kind of made me want to dig into their past. Also, there was the one guy, what's his name? Will Young. He's kind of like a weird flip side to Kelly Clarkson over here being kind of the first American Idol winner and him being the first, I guess, what was it called? Pop Idol? I don't really know much about Will Young except for I guess the song. I don't know if it's the song he recorded right after winning. They used to play it on American Idol all the time whenever someone was like kicked out or booted or rejected or whatever. Um, but yeah, the point is, I eventually ended up hearing Biology. I don't know how soon after watching that, like 30 seconds of Something I Knew. I think, thank goodness I heard Biology. However it came up, thank goodness, because after Something I Knew, I wasn't interested at all. I could have forgotten about that and just completely erased it from my memory, and that would have been it. But I heard Biology, and I just remember my overall sort of feeling being that of confusion. I didn't really know. I remember the video ending and saying to myself, I don't know what I just heard. I was thoroughly confused. I couldn't tell if I hated it or loved it. I did feel a need to figure out who the heck these weird people were. That's all. That's really what it felt like delving into Girls Aloud. Everything just felt strange, and I just attributed everything to being because they were British. I don't think I could say that now. I think even more than I was prior to coming across Girls Aloud. I've been a lot more immersed in not British culture, but probably British pop culture or TV culture. I don't know how you would put that. But back then, like anything that seemed off, I was like, ah, yeah, they're British. And I don't know, I still kind of do that sometimes. But yeah, I remember watching every performance of Biology that I could find. I don't even know what I was trying to glean from that, but it was like I just couldn't look away. The song structure was weird. At the time, I don't think I could even really put a finger on about what about the song I found weird. Of course, now it's obvious, but like I remember even just like watching several performances in a row and being like, I don't even know what these lyrics are. I'm not even like a lyrics kind of person. I don't need to know what all the lyrics to a song are. It's more about how the song makes me feel. But I just remember hearing certain like lyrics jump out at me from Biology and just being like, this doesn't even make sense. What's going on? And that I think made me that that song didn't make me like Girls Aloud, but it made me want to know who these people were and why they were so awkward. Not awkward, just strange, I think. And I ended up watching a bunch of random things. I think now, looking back, it was probably like Off the Record and just like, what else did they do? There was something else. There was like the Passions of Girls Aloud or something like that. And what else? There was the ghost hunting thing. I think I just watched a bunch of things like Saturday morning TV stuff, random like chat shows and things like that. Uh, I think I had a lot of fun just listening to them. I had to watch. You'd watch the interview like the first time and then 5 more times, once each, to focus on each girl. Um, trying to figure out what the heck the whole interview was about. But yeah, I think Off the Record was what I was watching when I heard a song in the background, and I thought it just sounded so nice and lovely and beautiful, and I really wanted to know what the song was. So I couldn't figure out what the song was. I hadn't, as far as I knew, I hadn't heard anyone mention a title or anything. I mean, now looking back, obviously their songs are playing in the background of that project all the way through. So I don't know. I just didn't know what it was. So I remember like finding like this 5 or maybe 10-second clip where it was quiet enough where like no one else was like talking in the foreground or anything. Or I figured out a little bit of the lyrics, typed that probably into YouTube search engine or something, and it came up. I feel silly now, but it was a whole lot of history. And I remember listening to it and watching the full video. And that was the first song that made me feel like, okay, I'm in. I'm in now. I need to know everything that's going on with this band. I want to know all the songs. Um, I want to know more about them. I don't think I even really had all their names down at that point. Um, but yeah, I was fully immersed. Going back to that, to Off the Record years later, not recently, but like years probably before the 10 tour, but sort of after I'd like familiarized myself with all things Girls Aloud, I probably watched Off the Record again, and I was quite shocked to find that there was an entire episode dedicated to the promotion of Whole Lot of History. So they were like shooting the music video or something like that, and it just I couldn't believe it. Like I must have not. I don't know what I was watching. I must have not understood a thing that anyone in that video was saying, because that's all there. The whole thing was about that song, about shooting the video, about um the release day, and how well it was doing on the radio. And somehow there was me scrubbing through 10 seconds of video over and over again to figure out what the heck the lyrics were, so I could figure out what the song was. Shame on me. But yeah, I think that song has become. It's hard to have a favorite with them. It's hard to do favorites with Girls Aloud, because everything is just so out there. Um, but a whole lot of history has a special place for me, because I think it's what kind of pulled me in and solidified me as a Girls Aloud fan, I think. Um, and it's a really lovely song. They don't have a lot of like, I don't know if I would call it a ballad, but they don't really have a lot of like slower tempo songs, and I think that's just a really nice one. And it highlights all of them very nicely, I think. It's a good one for harmonies as well. I love hearing them in harmony. Um, I also really love the song structure for a whole lot of history. I know people go on a lot about biology and how it's three songs in one, which is not something I noticed early on. I just knew it was like weird and off in a weird way, but also good. I didn't notice that whole sort of Frankenstein effect until later. But with a whole lot of history, I love that it has like, it's like a song in five parts. Uh, it's got like three different intros, and then the two verses aren't a one-to-one match. The only things that kind of stay the same are the choruses, which I think only happen twice, maybe three times. I feel like it's twice. And then you have Sarah's outro, of course. Yeah, I love it a lot. Um, yeah, so that's kind of how I got pulled in. I don't know at what point when I started like actually trying to figure them out in like chronological order. I think for me, what really like stands out in my mind when it comes to Girls Aloud is probably every and anything surrounding the Out of Control era. I think it just has to do with probably with when I came across them. It would have been that like, I feel like it would have been like mid 2010, most likely. And that would have been like their most recent thing. It would have been the highest quality videos on YouTube at the time. I also think they were just at a point, I didn't know it when I was first watching, but they were just at a point in their career as a five. I don't know how they were doing personally, if they were still enjoying themselves, but professionally speaking, they were just at the top of their game. Everything just seemed so effortless. They seemed very in control. in terms of like the way they interacted with people, whether that's fans or like in interviews. They just kind of they commanded any space they were in, and it was just I don't know, it's just really nice to watch. Just really nice to watch them in that mode. But I guess yeah, I guess they needed a break. Other than that, the Tangled Up era has always been like a weird, like shadowy, like the space it occupies in my mind feels like very like foggy. Like I know I love the Tangled Up album. It's got some great singles and some amazing album tracks. I don't know if it's that. I don't know. I think I used to listen to the Tangled Up album quite a lot, but something about the Out of Control era just shines really bright. I think that's what I used to like replay the most. The music and the tour, and then also on the other side of Tangled Up, you have Chemistry, which in its own way is just like this really bright spot. There's just something special, something very different happened with that era and that album. It's just lightning in a bottle, I think. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite of theirs or if I would even say it's their best. There's a lot of that album that I look at still to this day, and I just think this is just very British, and I don't really get it, but I love it at the same time. And I think because of that, Tangled Up kind of gets sandwiched in between to me. It's definitely not like a forgotten album. There's a lot of like really big, bright, a lot of really bright spots. But I don't know. Out of Control era just seems like I don't know. It's like core memory for me in terms of my relationship with Girls Aloud, and Chemistry was just so out there. It also has like the songs that I first came across, something kind of ooh, whole lot of history, and biology. Those were like the first few songs that I heard from them, so it makes sense that that would live pretty high up in the hierarchy of things for me with them. Um, Sound of the Underground and What Will the Neighbors Say have always been they've always been a bit strange. I've definitely listened to the both albums more than once, but I don't know. I just feel like I don't know. It was just a hard time to like grasp. Something about it just feels very weird. It's like early 2000s and also British. It just makes something about it is hard to like grasp onto. Like it just seems. I mean, they were obviously also like figuring things out, their sound and whatnot. But there's some really fun songs on those albums. I don't always remember what's what. Sometimes I forget. I think Love Machine is on. Well, obviously, yeah, it's on the What Will the Neighbor Say album. Sometimes I forget that, but my mind knows it's not on Chemistry, so it has to be on one of the first two. So yeah, those occupy an even foggier spot in my mind than Tangled Up. But yeah, I Don't Want You Back. I used to listen to that all the time. Graffiti My Soul, and like unironically, Girls Aloud on at the first or second album. I don't know. I just think it's funny that they even bothered to do that. But yeah, I listen to it sometimes just to get a kick out of it. Back to I want to talk a little bit more about the Tangled Up album. It's such a perfect transition between Chemistry and Out of Control. I feel like Chemistry is very like bold and just saying like what have we got to lose? Let's go all in and do this. I've heard a lot of people talk about Tangled Up as being more like grown up, and I agree, but it's also like grown up in a way that's not I don't want to say pretentious, but sort of that like imposter syndrome kind of thing. Like when you're a young adult like first getting into the workforce and you're like trying to prove yourself or show yourself to be professional, and that's like playing on your mind all the time when really like no one's huh, I don't think I'm explaining myself very well. Tangled Up is a very good album. Um, it's very chic, very it feels very like cool, like temperature wise. I don't know much about like promotion and like things that were going on around the release, but I've heard people talk about like not liking the album art, or at the very least the cover. That's so strange to me because due to that album, The Color Purple, there's a movie called that. Due to that album, purple to me is now like synonymous with the brand Girls Aloud. It has been for a long time. I just can't separate it. It just seems like very iconically them incorporating any kind of purple into any of their like branding. It's just strange to me that people would not have liked the album cover. I don't know. It didn't even occur to me to like or not like the album cover. Like I didn't notice at all the fact that they weren't on it. Is that like a normal thing? I don't buy a lot of music to start with, so the other thing with Out of Control was actually a really album wise. I find it's quite odd. It's quite a short album, if I remember correctly, and there were a few songs on there that were just like "Live in the Country" is such a weird song um, to include on an album at that stage in your career. I think, especially with all the other songs on that album. Um, but it had a lot of songs on it that I remember being obsessed with "Love Is Pain" for some reason. I don't know. I just loved it so much, and it was so short that you could just like keep playing it over and over again. Um, but additionally, "The Promise," obviously, amazing song. Okay, here's the thing about the Out of Control era. I enjoy it so much more live than I ever do on the record. Do I? Yeah, I think so. That's probably why I would watch the Out of Control tour over and over like so much. Um, um, Promise is a great song. It's actually difficult for me to listen to the record for The Promise. Like when I listen to it, it almost always has to be live or a live version. It's just so much better, so much more elevated. I'm not someone who harps too much on recordings. I think recorded music, especially with the way the industry runs, I think it makes sense that recorded music is kind of the most controlled version of a song. That makes sense. Like there's a million different decisions you could make about a song, in terms of like key and pitch and harmonies and things like that. But even just phrasing, the way you phrase a line, I think recorded music is kind of that like a control group, a very like a controlled version, and then you can take the song live and do different things with it and make it interesting in different ways. And I think Xenomania, I don't know. I don't know if it's on Xenomania or on the girls and whatever and whoever is helping them, like when they're performing live. But it just feels like Xenomania had a very good head for like coming up with this template for what these songs are, because they're so like wild and out there. It can be um, easy to like lose control of the to lose control of a production or of a performance with songs like that. They seem to do a good job of like containing them in these 2 to 6 minute snippets, and just creating these controlled masterpieces. And then the girls would go on tour and just do really fun things with them. A Whole Lot of History is another one. You got to listen to it live. My favorite version is probably from the Chemistry tour. That's the song that I would listen to. Oh, like I would listen to live as many times as I possibly could get the chance to. I love it on the Chemistry tour. Um, I remember realizing that it wasn't on the Out of Control tour and being kind of sad about it. Um, how did we get here? Oh, the Promise. Yeah, I have to listen to Promise live. Actually, let's stop and talk about the Out of Control era a little bit more. So the album I was saying is like oddly short and got some interesting songs on it. For years, I would never listen to Rolling Back the Rivers. I didn't get it, whether it was a live version or on the album. I didn't understand. One day, out of the blue, I I must have just let it play, and I was like, this actually, I don't know. For the first time, it just like it clicked. What was nice about it? It's kind of like flowy and dreamy, but I think it kind of does the same thing for me now that like the Loving Kind does, and maybe even Call the Shots, the Tangled Up album version. But yeah, it's a cool song. One thing I will say is another thing that makes the Out of Control era my favorite is the tour. I don't know who was in charge of the music for that tour, who was like the music, like the arrangement, but there's something about it that's just so fun. It's like a little bit more rocky, a little bit more edgy. There's definitely a lot more guitar, maybe a more prominent bass, but they managed to do that seamlessly across all the songs, and just like made it very just like put like a little flair, a specific sound that was able to like uh, bring in all these songs from all these different albums and make them cohesive. I absolutely love it. For that reason, even Call the Shots from the Tangled Up album, my favorite listen is the live version from the Out of Control tour. There's just so much more. The guitar is so much more. I think it's an electric guitar. Is so much more elevated in that tour version, and I love it so much. Uh, Sarah's vocals on that are amazing. Everyone really. Um, Nicola, her middle, what do we call it? Is it a bridge? Is it long enough to be a bridge or middle eight or whatever they call it? Um, Everything's just spot on with that performance. I'm sure there's like some editing because it's a tour DVD or whatever. I'm not sure if all of it was from the same night. Things get wonky a little bit with that stuff, but I think the music was done perfectly. I absolutely love it. And when I found out that a whole lot of history was not on that tour, I was so sad because I would have loved to hear what they would have done with it. I mean, it would be relatively the same, but just like the instrumentals, I think probably would have gotten an interesting treatment, I think, for that tour. Conversely, a few years prior, the Tangled Up tour, I don't love that tour. A lot of people talk about that tour like it was one of their one of their greatest achievements. People absolutely love that tour. Maybe it's a thing of just like a just had to be there. I don't know. I couldn't get into it. I haven't watched. Okay, oh, I should take that back. I haven't watched it a lot. Specifically, the whole lot of history performance there. As much as I would like scour the internet to find a live performance of whole lot of history, I do not at all like the arrangement for that tour, the instrumental arrangement for that tour for a whole lot of history. And it's enough that I actually can't even listen to it. It doesn't give me the same enjoyment that the song does. I'd rather listen to the record than that version. It's unfortunate because that tour also has amazing performances like Control the Knife, Girl Overboard. Amazing song. Um, what was the other one? Oh, yeah, Close to Love. That was it. Girl Overboard, Close to Love, and Control the Knife were some amazing performances on that tour. So, yeah, I watched those a lot. But the whole Tangled Up tour, I don't revisit that quite as much. But yeah, it's all right. There's a lot to talk about with this band. I feel like I've been rambling for ages now. I'm going to have to edit this down quite a lot. I don't even know what my point is here or why I'm doing this. Oh, actually, I do know why. Here's a question that I'd like to pose to anyone here watching. And if anyone knows the answer, please, please, please put it down in the comments, because this has bothered me for years now. Well, not bothered, but I've wanted to know the answer for years. So I guess that is bothered. One of my favorite performances on the Out of Control tour is for the song "Waiting." I was probably watching that tour for years, and I knew about Girls Aloud for years before one day I'm sitting watching it and it clicks. You know what happened? Actually, no, I was watching the Chemistry tour, which is one that I almost never watch. It's just a bit too out of my range, a little bit too before. I don't want to say my time. I don't want to say my time. It's not like I wasn't alive when that happened. I had no idea who they were at that time, and it's just a bit too far back. But I was watching it one day, and Waiting started. And at first I was just like bopping along, and then sort of like my brain like wasn't matching up. Things weren't matching up with my expectations versus what I was seeing on the screen. And I realized that the reason I knew this song so well, it's not from the Chemistry album, it's from watching the Out of Control tour. Now, can someone explain to me how or why an album track from 2 albums prior ended up on the set list for the Out of Control tour? Not only is it on the set list, but they've bothered to update the choreography. It's got entirely different choreography, and it's amazing. I absolutely love the performance on the Out of Control tour. I just don't know like how that would happen. I feel like on a tour for your 5th studio album, like there's probably so much to sift through, trying to figure out like what to include and what not to. Like there's a lot of decisions to be made. I just don't know how. I'd be very, very curious to figure out how that made the cut. It's 2 albums prior. It's not a single. There's a lot of things to put your energy into, and now we're choreographing a whole new, quite intensive routine for this song as well. How did that happen? I feel like if I could ask any of them a question, that would be it. I was going to say if I were ever to run into them. I don't think I would ask that if I were to run into one of them. That'd be a bit of a waste of a meeting. But if I had a chance to ask a question, that would be it. How the heck did Waiting end up on the Out of Control tour set list with all new choreography? Interesting thoughts. Okay. Now, why am I here at all? Why are we talking about this? It's because late last year, I'm sitting on my computer the day before Thanksgiving. Well, actually, I should give a little background to it. At my most, like, at the height of my sort of like obsession with Girls Aloud, when I was the most like consuming their content and figuring out everything I could about them and whatnot, there was a period of time. I would like to say it's short, but it probably wasn't that short at all. But there was a period of time where not the first thing of the day, but the first time I was on a computer every day, the first thing I would do was look up the words Girls Aloud, Nadine Coyle, Sarah Harding, Nicola Roberts, Kimberly Walsh, and Cheryl. What was that for? It was just to keep up with what they were doing, because Girls Aloud were not active at the time. But I still wanted to I just didn't want to miss anything. I wasn't on any like social media. I'm still not really. I guess now with this channel, I'm probably gonna be more than I ever was. I just wasn't interested in being on social media, so I was just like, I'll just scour the news section of Google every day to see if there's something new going on. But the point is, nothing could have happened. Nothing like what's happened in the past few months could have happened without me like having some inkling of it happen. I think after the 10 tour and after things kind of ended the way they did and then deteriorated the way they did. Oh, I can't believe I didn't talk about this. The 10 tour. Now I feel like I have to stop. Okay, here's the thing. Quick segue to talk about the 10 era. The 10 era was super exciting for me because it's basically what I had been waiting for since I discovered them. I was waiting for them to sort of be, I wanted to be like present in sort of the action for whatever they were doing. Even though I'm all the way over here in the States, obviously wasn't going to be able to see them, wasn't expecting to. I just wanted to be sort of in the thick of it, right? So 10 comes along. Okay, it's going to be a greatest hits thing. Great. I'm so happy that everyone was on board. That was such a bittersweet era. I think someone who wasn't around for the first 5 albums, I think it's probably an obvious thing that I would have wanted a new album. I also thought, especially around 2009, like I'd mentioned before, they were so just like it was just so like ingrained in their bones and their muscles, being Girls Aloud, each of them being 1/5 of this entity, and I just wanted to see that again. I thought the music they produced was so different, but also I just loved their voices together. I just love hearing them together. So I think I was very hopeful for another album just to see, especially after a 3-year break and all of them had like gone off and done different things and grown so much. It would be interesting to have heard what that would have sounded like at that time. And also very nerve-wracking because I mean a 3-year hiatus, you give all the old stuff time to like cement in the idea of legacy, right? Now you have to add to it. It just seems very daunting, like a very daunting task, I think. But I wanted them to do it. I also think that the ease of performance, both in terms of vocals and like stage presence, that they had in '09 in and around the Out of Control era, that's not something, I don't think that's quite like riding a bicycle. I think that's something that comes with repetition and practice. And they had basically been out of practice for 3 years. So as much as I loved seeing them during that 10 era, what I really hoped for was more time for them to sort of reconnect and like gel and sort of be more, I don't know, more in tune with each other, I think. That's one of the things, like the song Sound of the Underground, it's one of my favorites for them to perform. Not because it's their best song, but I mean, it's a very good song. But it's just really fun to see the progression of that song. Watching performances from 2002 all the way up to maybe like '05, and then like more from '09. '09 was like so slick for that song. If you watch a live performance of Sound of the Underground from '09, most likely from the tour for that album, Out of Control tour. It's just they're so comfortable. It's like second nature to them. It looks as easy as breathing, I guess. They're just on it. And I think I was hoping to see that with some of the songs, like songs from the 10 album, like On the Metro. That song had me from the first like 10 seconds. I remember listening to like the preview like before the album was released on, I don't know, maybe it was iTunes or something. It's like a 30-second clip, like over and over again. I couldn't wait to hear the full thing, and it did not disappoint. I thought I didn't necessarily love the choreography for it on the 10 tour. And outside of that, I just thought, I remember seeing it and thinking, it would be fun to see them perform this 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I just thought, not even just like the choreography of it, but even like vocally, I just figured they would have like warmed to each other. Like they would be more in tune with each other by then, and the performances could really only get better and better the longer they're working together, right? So I don't know. That's kind of the bittersweet thing for me with 10. It was a good it was a good experience to have, but I just thought there was so much more that they could have built on with that. And there are reasons why it didn't. I'm sure things we'd never know, which is also another like kind of bittersweet thing, was the way that ended. I won't talk too much about that because I don't think I fully grasp. I'm someone who can't quite when something's like, I don't know if the word's cringe, but when something makes me uncomfortable, a lot of times I can't even look or listen. So a lot of the arguments that happened sort of at the end of that 10 era and onwards, I was kind of like watching, like in between, watching with my face covered in between my fingers. I just couldn't. I don't like seeing them like that. I don't like seeing them argue. That was also one of the good things about this band. They seem very um cordial, so to speak, with each other. I think they do try. They all seem like very unmessy people, or people who aren't very fond of, you know, they don't seem very fond of messy situations or confrontation. They seem, yeah, quite non-confrontational. But whatever went on, um 2013 must have been there must have been enough cooped up um there must have been enough cooped up energy for things to sort of almost blow up the way they did. And even then, I think, compared to some other stories you could dredge up, I think it was relatively benign. It's not like they were out in the street clawing at each other or anything. um yeah, but some of it, I wish they had been able to sort of keep to themselves a little bit more. But I think some things were like bubbling below the surface that had to spill out, I guess. They were just It just felt like they were too good of a band for things to end that way. And I wish they didn't. But what happened happened. And I don't think we'll ever know fully what went on there. I just remember sitting in my dorm room reading that damn Twitlonger. It's the worst thing ever. I actually would, I would be so excited. Like, I followed that tour. I'd be so excited whenever there was a show, because you guys are like 6 hours ahead. So my whole day trying to get through like my classes and things like that, and my whole day was just like looking forward to the evening when people would have gotten home or been on their way home from a concert, and people were just like posting like videos and comments and things about what happened and what was said. And that was, as far as I knew, that was the closest I would ever get to a Girls Aloud show, especially after the Twitlonger. But yeah, that was it. I think after 2013, I still went through a period of like obsessively like checking in on them, seeing what they're doing, watching them on different like shows and whatnot. Um, but I think slowly over the years, I kind of like weaned myself off of that behavior and sort of resigned myself to the idea that, you know, that was over. And, it's nice to revisit the music and stuff, and that'll always be there. But maybe that was kind of it for that band. I think for a long time, I didn't even really like look into, like, I didn't know anything else that was happening in the music industry, because I just didn't care. I was like, I don't have time to be obsessed with more than one group, so why even bother? But like after that, I started getting into some other people. I don't know, maybe there's something interesting about looking into bands that have already been around for a while, because that are active and have already been around for a while, because it's like you have this plethora of music to catch up on, and just videos and things like that. So I think around that time I finally gave some other bands a chance. McFly, Take That, who else? Solo acts, Kylie. I knew who Kylie was before that, but I never really bothered too much with looking into it. The point is, at some point I had gotten to the point where they weren't on my mind every day, which is why on November the 23rd of 2023, I was sitting on my computer trying to figure out what sort of high budgeted items I need. This was the day before Thanksgiving, and the day after Thanksgiving is Black Friday here in the United States. There's going to be a lot of sales on. I'm not one of these people that run out to buy a new whatever inch TV every year. I mean, I usually just ignore Black Friday, but this year I actually needed a couple of things, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to get suckered into any deals. So it's like, I'm just going to make this list of things that I need, and if I see any good deals, I'll buy them, and if not, so be it. So there I was scrolling. I had one screen scrolling all these like shops and whatnot, and on the other screen was my YouTube homepage. And for some reason, I refreshed the page. I don't even know why, but I remember like barely like looking, and in the corner of my eye, I see what I know is a Girls Aloud video, but at the same time, I know that I don't recognize the thumbnail just from like my peripheral vision. So I look over, and it's clearly them, and it's their channel, but it's new. And I remember just kind of like turning away because I was really busy and late to wherever I was supposed to be. And I was just like, I can't deal with this right now. And then I think I finished making my list. And I was like, okay, I need to get up and go, but I can't leave this desk without figuring out what this video is. So I watched the video, and I don't even know what I thought. I feel like I couldn't quite comprehend at the time what I had just watched. Like, it's obviously them. It's obviously real. It's not April Fool's, and even if it was, that would be a very cruel joke. I remember just like closing my computer, picking up my bags, and leaving, because I was supposed to be with family by that point. I was spending the whole Thanksgiving weekend with my family. I've got a 2-year-old niece who runs circles around everyone. I just didn't have time to think about this video that I had watched, and it's like spinning away at the back of my mind that there's this thing happening. It didn't even occur to me that there would be any sort of like urgency to this. I just like let it sit. And I think a week later, I finally like sat down and intentionally like went back to that video. I sat down and intentionally went back to that video, watched it again, and I think I probably like held my breath the entire time, like not believing what I was seeing. And at that point, it had been a week, so apparently they had been doing like press, and it just felt so odd to me. It was just weird that there was like new, just like them sitting next to each other and giving interviews and talking about the band. Here's the thing. In 2019, as much as I thought the band was over, in 2019, I just thought to myself, if there's any chance that they did go on tour, I should probably be there, right? I was like, you know what? I'll start preparing my mind for that. Maybe like saving a little here and there. It's going to be an expensive trip, a long trip. And then, I don't know. A lot of people seemed confident about it, like online. And I didn't see any reason. Like, I have no expectations. They don't owe me a tour. They don't owe me anything. I just thought, if it happens, it happens. Great. And then, of course, with losing Sarah, that was just devastating. And to me, it's not that I would want them never to do anything again, now that she's no longer here. It's just I didn't like I would never want the responsibility of making that decision. And I think just whatever they decided I would have supported. But I just thought it wasn't going to happen. Certainly not this soon. And to be honest, the longer it goes, I guess the less likely. So I had all but like cast that out of my mind. Honestly, I know a lot of people in a situation like that would maybe listen to Girls Aloud music in tribute. For me, it was the opposite. I kind of like dissociated from everything. Um, I mean, I've got it in my heart and in my mind, but just like having that external input of anything Girls Aloud related was just a bit difficult. So I was completely like tuned out from everything in this space. So to be hit with that on the 23rd of November, that there was a tour, it felt like it had just dropped out of the sky, like it just come from absolutely nowhere. I mean, I've done a lot of internet sleuthing ever since then, and obviously, it seems obvious now that there were clues and people having this discussion before. I just hadn't come across any of it, hadn't heard any of it. But what happened then? So I find out about this tour, and I'm immediately like thrown back to sort of that 10 era where like the excitement for me is in getting these new like videos and updates online. It's the idea that there's going to be a 1 to 2 month, maybe 3 month period where there's going to be new videos posted nearly nightly of shows that people are attending. Like, it didn't occur to me at all that it's been 10 years and I'm now an adult, and that there's no reason why I couldn't go to a Girls Aloud show if I really wanted to. It just didn't occur to me. So I'm watching all these interviews. They're talking about pre-sales, which are obviously long past now because I waited a week to get back to that video. Apparently the tour was selling great, which is awesome. Girls Aloud, to me, there's still an element of like strangeness to them. Um, that'll never go away. I just know that I love them, so that there's never any. Even if they were to like misstep, like make something that I don't like, it's fine, whatever. I'll hang in there for the next thing. For me, what concerns me is how everyone else receives them. So I was super pleased to find that the tour was selling so well. I wanted things to be good for them. They definitely took a huge leap, maybe even a risk, in attempting to do this after losing Sarah. I'm sure it was a very difficult choice. So I was glad that people were responding well. But it didn't occur to me at all that I could even go to a show. I remember mentioning to my sister that they were going back on tour. She was like, "Oh, cool. Are you going to go?" And I was like, I just had my usual answer. Like, that, it just seemed like the most ridiculous thing. Like, of course not. I'm just going to be watching online like I usually would. And then I went to bed, woke up the next morning, and one of the first things I see is a post on their YouTube account saying something about, "Thanks for all the ticket sales. Things are going well. We're adding a fifth night to the O2." And it just seemed like, I don't know what the word is. I don't think serendipity is right, but I don't know how else to say it, but how else to put this, but it felt like a sign. Like, I don't know why I hadn't been considering going, but all of a sudden I was considering going. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to expect from this tour. I think it's hard to imagine. I definitely would not want to be in the position that they're in. I think the hardest thing to try to wrap your head around is the music, right? Like, what do you do? Um, how do you work that out when you have a 5 piece band? I mean, people always say things about how lyrics are distributed or whatever. I never had a problem with any of it. I always thought Zetamania did a good job with making sure the music was the priority, and I feel like everyone was always used um, exactly where they needed to be. And again, when they took the songs on tour or performed them live, they like elevated them further with their own, I guess, taste. But then how do you redistribute those lines? Not even just to make sure that they work properly, but like, I don't know. It can't be easy, obviously. And then as a listener, as a consumer, like hearing, it just won't sound the same, right? Um Sometimes I worry that it will sound like another band doing a cover of of Girls Aloud music, which I would not advise for anyone. It didn't work out for those girls in X Factor. Certainly wouldn't work out for anyone else. Um, I don't know. I would say I trust them in all their oddness and strangeness and awesomeness. I think if they didn't think they could do it, we wouldn't be here, right? They wouldn't have put this forth. I trust them to make a good show. I know they've spoken a lot about like also making sure that it's also a tribute to Sarah. Um, I don't know. I think there was a feeling for me thinking that, well, if I was ever going to go to a Girls Aloud show, would I want it to be this one? And the answer I think is kind of why not. Um, Obviously, I wouldn't want it to be this one. I think if I could have picked one and go back in time, it would have been the Out of Control tour. Uh, a little bit obsessed with that era, if you haven't figured out already. But I think I think I've probably made a decision now that it would be a good thing to do to be there. And as much as I worry about what the show will be, I think I don't know, it feels less like attending a concert and more like, at the risk of sounding sacrilegious, it feels a bit more like a pilgrimage at this point. That kind of need to be there in the presence of everything live. I think it'll be fantastic and joyous and also and also solemn and humbling, and I don't know, I think concerts have that effect, generally speaking, of sort of like, it's like the music feels like shock waves of like community among the people in the audience for that specific amount of time and maybe even past it. I don't know. All I know is that these four are consummate professionals. They know how to put on a good show. They understand more than any of us what's missing and the extent to which that can be filled and the extent to which that can never be filled. And I think they're going to put on a good show. Whatever it is, they'll put their best. Whatever it is, they'll put their best into it. And I don't know. I always get nervous like this whenever either the group or any one of them is doing something new. I just want I want it to be, sure, I want it to be good, but I want it to be successful. I want people to like it. I already know that I support them no matter what. So I just hope that people like it. And I think they will. It's good to have them back. I think there was someone left a comment on Nicola's Instagram, something about we all needed this, like the fans needed the tour for like a sense of healing. I don't know if I would take it that far, but I do understand the sentiment. It's like, sure, we're all grieving Sarah, as we all have a right to do, but in the sense that you're a fan of a group, everything that you do surrounding them is kind of led by them or defined by them. They're working on new music. They let you know that they've got new music out. You go buy new music. They let you know that they're going on tour. You go buy a ticket and you go see them on tour. Um, they've got a show out. They're going to be on a show or whatever. Everything is dictated by what they're doing. You don't just go be be a Girls Aloud fan without there being a band called Girls Aloud, right? So I feel like to some extent with Sarah's passing, it's still there's a feeling of what do we do? Like every region, every place has rituals or traditions surrounding the loss of a loved one. And some of those have practical purposes and um some of them have spiritual purposes or religious purposes. But some of them have a lot to do with helping those left, helping them come to terms and to move, not to move on, but to continue on in life. And I think um, in a situation like this, I feel like in terms of fandom, maybe not in their personal lives, but in terms of fandom, there can be a sense of maybe being a bit stuck and not knowing. I mean, a lot of things have been done in Sarah's honor since her passing, and I think a lot of fans have done their best to participate in the best spirit that they can. You had the Race for Life, you had the gala. Um, there was that song that was released, and even just other Girls Aloud songs that sort of re-entered the charts after that. But I think, yeah, it makes sense that the tour would be something that people would be almost craving in a sense, just for a sense of like, I don't know, direction. Not again, not in their personal lives, but just in terms of fandom and within sort of the Girls Aloud fandom. It makes sense that sort of going back to the well, so to speak, and going and seeing them live and being able to like commune and commiserate both with the girls and with other fans alike. I can see how that's a good thing. At the same time, I wouldn't hold against them if they chose not to. It's so difficult. I don't. It honestly shocked me. I was not expecting anything like this at all. Yeah, so I have no expectations, so to speak. Just a good time and a good show. Still, jury's still out a little bit. It's not beyond my means, but it's a bit, it's a bit pricey to make it out there. It certainly wouldn't. I would have to make quite a trip out of that. Have other things sort of on the itinerary to make it worth it, especially dead in the middle of summer. That drives prices up a lot more, and I understand it's getting later and later, and the longer I ruminate over the decision on whether or not to go, um, the more expensive things get. But I don't know. I've got a decision to make. We'll see. Maybe this could be something good for the channel, something I could use for the channel. I've always been curious about cameras and microphones, especially in the outdoors. So maybe that'd be a good time to test out some things. Other than the tour, I do. Here's the thing: in terms of like the idea of like healing and communing or recommuning. Here's the thing: I I appreciate their discretion and sort of lack of messiness, even though there's been a little bit of that within the past 10 years. Here's the thing, we were all there for that. I don't expect them to sort of like air dirty laundry, and I understand now that Sarah is not here to speak for herself. It might be hard to broach some of those subjects, but I think between like the twit longer and some of the other little like spats, little smattering of spats that have gone on, I just feel like that sort of bifurcation, or that that also like emanates throughout the rest of the fandom, and I feel like we need a bit of I don't know, not clarification, not explanation. I don't think they owe us that, but just a little bit of something to sort of like, it feels like they were on the outs. We had to witness that, and it hurt a little bit. I mean, it's not my personal life, but it does. And then all of a sudden, things, not all of a sudden, but things seem all right now. Whether it's all rainbows and unicorns again, or maybe they've just come to an understanding about each other and their relationship with each other, which would also be fine. I just think they need to kind of like it, or not need to. It would be nice if they would also like bring us along a little bit. Like I feel a bit like, I don't know, whiplash or anything, or just like behind the curve a little bit. Like, when did this happen? Sort of. I don't know. Even back in like 2020, before like 2020, early 2021, before we heard anything about Sarah, um, I think I was feeling this way a little bit. Like, you guys have got a little bit of, I guess, a little bit of explaining to do. I don't need like details. I don't know. Catch us up to speed, and maybe, I think in a way just to avoid like false expectations, because I think a lot of the early like 10 era, especially like the promo period, kind of gave an expectation that obviously ultimately did not come to fruition. And not only did it not come to fruition, but it also like it seemed like in high contrast to what was put out there. So it makes me feel like, rather than a concrete sort of long-term decision, it really did feel like something happened, like there was a sharp 180, so to speak. Yeah, that would be a good feeling not to feel again. I think. Um, I guess if they could just like talk to us a little bit. I don't expect them to do things like off the record again. I think they're a bit. I think their personal life is a bit more precious than maybe it was at that time. But I think we could get, I think a little bit of more of them candid would be interesting. I know now, I think nowadays stuff like that is very, it's very like TikTok, very Instagram, just people like posting random things about their life that it's almost too personal online in these like 30-second snippets. And it's like, does anyone need to know this much? I don't think we do. I think something like off the record was probably, to me, it seemed like a better balance, where it's candid, but it's also to an extent curated. And I think that's more of what I would be interested in for them for this era. Not the same as 10 years at the top. That seemed more like it was more of a weird, like, that was more of a presentation than a documentary style thing. I think, yeah, I think they could just, I don't know, open up a little bit. Not about anything personal to them individually, but about them personally as a band, if that makes sense. If you think of Girls Aloud as an entity, a personality, a person, I think it'd be cool to understand a little bit more about just kind of the emotional journey of the last 10 years, I think. But yeah, other than that, it's going to be an interesting summer. And I think in the run up to it, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, probably, of emotions of um, whether this should even be happening or not. How good is it going to be or not? I think to help sort of keep things steady, I want to kind of revisit some of Girls Aloud's music, probably in like full like album installments, because a lot of the album tracks I haven't listened to in a long time. And I may be possibly doing them on this channel. I don't see why not. It wouldn't be new music, which is what I was kind of hoping to start off with here. But in the meantime, I think, I don't know. I feel like if I did like an album a month, we'd be done in time for tour, ready, primed, having revisited everything. Oh, that's the other thing about this tour. I don't want it to be a greatest hits tour. Like, I know it's been 10 years, and that's usually what happens around these like big sort of these big anniversary tours. I just think they've had two greatest hits tours. I just want, I guess, a Girls Aloud show, which is what they're calling it. What do I mean by that? I just mean, I understand that the singles are the singles, but they're also the most performed songs of any like band or artist. So maybe this would be a good opportunity to revisit some things that haven't been done for a while, or even to perform some things for the very first time. Things that people maybe would never even expect. Now, there are some songs on the first like two albums that I have absolutely no interest in hearing that some people seem to be very excited about online. So maybe this isn't the greatest request, but I just think there could be some cool album tracks that either haven't been performed since their tour era, or maybe were never performed at all. Also, no covers, please. We don't have time. We don't need it. um, what would I like to hear that's never been done? I don't know if this would. This is such a weird song. I guess they're all weird songs. Singapore. I would absolutely love to hear Singapore live. Would I? Yeah. Why not? I just don't know what. I don't know. I guess that's still my job. I don't know what they would look like. What songs like that would look like live. What You Crying For, off the Tangled Up album. I don't know. I would like it not to be like a greatest hits tour in terms of just like a singles rehash. Not rehash. That makes it sound terrible. It doesn't have to be all singles, I think. I like some variety. This should celebrate Girls Aloud in its entirety. Um in an in-depth way, and kind of a, I don't know. A lot of people are buying tickets, right? So it's not like everyone is a super fan, right? There's going to be people who just have fond memories and know that they're a good time. But I feel like there should be some deep cuts in there. It's a 20-year anniversary. I think that's a pretty big deal, and there's a lot that sort of comprise that time, that fill in that 20 years. So yeah, just stuff as much in there as you can. Right. It has been nearly 2 hours. It's probably not going to be that long of a video after I chop things down. I'm losing my voice. My nose is getting a bit plugged up, so it's quite cold over here. Yeah, I think that's going to be it. This is going to be the first installment for Just What's on My mind. A lot of things Girls Aloud, a lot of which I probably didn't even touch on. If I ever do those album reactions, we'll probably get more in depth there. Talk about a few more things. Yeah, if there's any thoughts, any American. Oh, I just thought of something. I was gonna say if there are any Americans watching. Here's the thing. I hear a lot of people say they wish Girls Aloud would have come over here, like tour. There has never been a point in my like obsession or like my being a fan of Girls Aloud that I ever wanted them, and I always felt like quite a little bit like guilty about this because I understand what that would mean in terms of success, either in terms of legacy or just financially, for them to like break America or crack America or whatever. I never wanted that. For as long as I've known of them, like I've kind of been glad that they're like quintessentially a British band. I just feel like things would change in a way that I wouldn't appreciate if they had made it over here. Like, would they have stuck with Cinemania for 5 albums? Even if they did, would they have also included some other producers, American producers, that would just like change their sound? They would be attempting to cater to a new audience. And it's easy to say, like, if you're an American fan, like, no, I love them too, so why wouldn't they? I mean, it's different me or anyone else like discovering them online and like flocking to them versus them trying to garner a new like audience. There would be a bit of playing to the audience. There just would be. There always is. And I don't know. I think it would have changed them in a way that I don't know would not have been for the best. And I think that it would have like stretched them in a way. I don't know. I think things played out exactly the way they should have, and in some cases, I still wish there were more. I wish things didn't go the way they did in 2013, but in terms of them ever coming over here, I wouldn't mind it so much if they came just to tour, like a few shows, just announced it, and we're like, if anyone knows who we are, make your way over. This is where we're going to be on this date at this time. But in terms of like trying to do promo and trying to ingrain themselves in sort of the Hollywood system here, I don't know. I think a lot of what I love about them is their Britishness, and I wouldn't want that to change. Shouts out to Ireland as well, Northern and Republic of. Yeah, there's just nothing in me that's ever like. The other thing is just is like what's it called? Not just promotion, but like branding and stuff like that. Like I never had any of that. Like the commercials, the like magazines in your face when you're trying to check out at a store, um, tabloids and stuff like that. Like we don't have any of that here. So like me having to seek out information about them, like to me it filters out all the noise and the messiness and all that. I get to just experience them almost as I imagine they would want, in terms of I experience what they put out as content um versus people trying to sort of make money off of them. I guess that doesn't really apply in terms of merchandising, but still I just feel like there's something more purified in the experience. Not that it's clean, but it's most at its most filtering out all the other stuff. I feel like that's the way I get to experience them, just for not being bombarded with all that extra stuff. And quite frankly, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think the compromise would have been too great for them, for what they are, what they've become, in terms of sort of making a lane for themselves in the States or internationally or whatever. It's I think it's quite all right. It's quite all right the way things have gone. Um, yeah, and hopefully this summer I'll be able to make a trip over there and see them live. Yeah. Anyways, I've been going for way too long. Leave a comment. if anyone's listening, let me know what your sort of experience with Girls Aloud has been. I'll be back. This has been Just What's on My Mind with Anywhere and Anything Else. I don't know what the next topic will be. It could be anything, really. And it might not be for a long time. Just depends on what's on my mind. Anyway, see you guys later. Bye.